More Australians are experiencing mental distress and loneliness in 2024, as well as difficulty accessing support services. It's a worrying trend, and it's emerged in the latest Mental Health Monitor, which does track mental health and wellbeing, and it's done so in Australia for 2 years now. I'm joined by the Executive Director of Australians for Mental Health, Chris Gabbian. Chris, thanks so much for your time. Thinking about the last 7 days, how would you rate your current mental health? That was the key question here. What were the results?
Yeah, well, quite distressingly, Laura, the last time we spoke, when this poll was run in November last year, we said it was 1 in 3 Australians that said their mental health was either poor or very poor. A few months later, and that number's risen to 40%. 40% of people, of the 1,700 odd people that were polled in this sample, so a very valid sample, 40% of people said that their mental health was either very poor or poor. And those numbers get much worse when you look at some of the more specific demographic groups. So 35 to 50, that number jumps all the way up to 46.7%. So almost half of the people aged between 35 and 50 in Australia right now would say that their mental health is poor or very poor. This is a crisis.
One of the questions as well was what has been the main source of pressure on your mental health? And you keep this to the last 7 days, so I guess that is fresh in people's minds. What were the answers to that question?
Yeah, look, it's interesting that the number one reason consistently that comes back is work. And when you think about it, that probably isn't surprising. There's a lot of people who spend a lot of their time, increasing amounts of time at work, whether that's excessive sort of long hours, stress at work, unachievable targets, being bullied at work, having a hard time with customers at work, or conversely, not having work, and all the pressure that comes with not having work. You know, we were just talking about the construction industry, and, you know, construction is a great example of a sector that is in crisis when it comes to mental health. We are losing on average 1 person every second day in the construction industry to suicide. It is a devastating statistic. It is by far the worst sort of health and safety problem within the construction industry. So, yes, work overwhelmingly the source of people's mental distress.
In this survey, you also asked, I have had enough connection with other people and do not feel lonely. What was the answer to that question?
Yeah, again, one that, you know, when you think about it, it shouldn't really surprise us because I think, you know, the thing about mental health is that I think sometimes we think about this as sort of a problem that other people have got, you know, it's a problem that other people are experiencing. But these statistics overwhelmingly are showing us that all of us at various times are feeling the effects of poor mental health and things like loneliness. So huge numbers of people yet again describing themselves as not having enough connection, not having enough sort of support structures and sort of the things that you need to not be lonely. And when we dive a little bit deeper into that, we find that when we ask people, well, why do you think that's happening? One of the reasons, or probably the most common reason, is that they just simply don't have enough friends. So I think the question we've got to ask ourselves is, you know, what's changed? Why do we suddenly have this, or perhaps not suddenly, but why do we have this epidemic? And I think a big part of that is we're not necessarily structuring our lives and structuring our society in a way that supports really good mental health. So in the case of loneliness, and this happens across all age groups, in fact, the loneliness statistics are worse for younger people. You know, the people who, you know, should have the time to get out and about and have friends and socialise and do all those sorts of things, they are feeling it most acutely. And so across every age range, we're finding people just don't have enough connection. And when we think about how historically have we managed to get connection in our lives, they're things that we don't do as much anymore. So, you know, people don't go up to the shops on a Saturday morning to do their grocery shopping or buy their meat or and therefore sort of bump into a neighbour or see a friend that they might only talk to for 2 minutes. But that kind of connection really helps a lot. Increasingly, we do things online. So, you know, we might be connected, we might be in contact with our family and our friends, but it's through a little screen on our phones or on our computers. And that's not a substitute for the sort of human connection, the stuff that is going to make us feel like we've got support and connection and not feel lonely.
Another question was, my local member of parliament cares about my mental health. What did people answer to that?
Look, this should be a wake-up call to every single politician in Australia. 78% of people saying that they don't think that their local MP is putting mental health and wellbeing first. So that's well beyond any particular political party or any particular politician. And I think this goes to the heart of one of the things that we really need to have a serious conversation about in this country, which is, where does mental health and wellbeing sit in our list of priorities? And my fear is that it's just not sitting anywhere near high enough up our sort of pecking order of priorities. You know, whether you run a household, whether you run a workplace, or whether you run the country, it should be that mental health and wellbeing and the things that we need to support mental health and wellbeing should be right up there at the top. You know, it should be alongside national security and the economy in terms of our priorities as a nation, because if government's got one role, if your local MP has got one role, it's to make sure that the community is doing well. Yes, we need to be safe. Yes, we need to have a good economy. But the third part of that really important triumvirate is to make sure that we're mentally healthy and well.